Hello BookTube! So my last video I talked about the last 3 books I read in 2022, and I thought today I would go ahead and make a video kind of just encompassing my thoughts of the entire 2022 reading experience. I hope you all had a good reading experience. I definitely did this year. I have my little journal here, which I just purchased. If you know me, I'm a Doctor Who fan. I'm hoping there's a lot of pages in here. It does say it's bigger on the inside, but we'll see. So far I only see that much. But I wrote down a few stats of my reading year, and I'm just going to go ahead and share those with you to begin with. So each year I set a goal on Goodreads, and basically I use that goal just so I can keep track of the books I've read and my general thoughts on them. I used to do some reviews on there when I get time. Sometimes I do, or on some books that really resonate with me, I tend to write a review on there. But otherwise, it may be just a star rating or whatever. But what it does is, at least at the end of the year, you can see your reading challenge, and it'll show you all the books that you read, and you can go back and then collect stats or whatever. So I use it mostly for that. I used to set higher goals when I was trying to read like so many books, and the quantity doesn't quite matter as much as the quality. You know, as anybody, you want to read good books. But I also want to see that number kind of at least stay fairly high in terms of, to me, that means that I'm spending time reading and not just zoning out in front of the TV or, you know, that kind of a thing. So I've seen my goal, I should say my actual reading quantity plummet for the past 8 years. And so you can see here, starting with 2014, I read like about 183 books, and each year it's gone down all the way to 2021 when I read 55 books. So this year I set the goal of 50, and I read actually 79 books. So it's nice to see it start kind of trend back upwards. Now, in some of these years when I read quite a lot of books, I read a lot of manga. So I wouldn't say that, you know, it's a lot of really rich reading experience, but like I said, I still would like to see that I'm spending more time reading, and that's kind of my main goal for the coming year. Read more good books. Now just going over the breakdown of the various genres I read throughout the year. Again, this year, the number 1 spot is held by manga. I read 17 manga. The number 2 spot is shared both by the mystery and the, which includes regular mystery and cozy mysteries, and the horror genre. I read 15 books in each of those genres. And that doesn't surprise me because those are my 2 favorite, at least at the moment. Number 3 spot, it was graphic novels. I read 9. In number 4, literary fiction, I read 7. Number 5, sci-fi, I read 6. The 6th spot of classics, I read 5 books. I want to read more classics. There's just such a rich reading experience for classics, and there's so many that I've, you know, heard discussed over the years that I'm just like, I really need to get to reading that. So that's always on one of my main goals, really, is to read more classics. The number 7 spot was YA with 4. The number 8 spot was nonfiction with 1 book. I wouldn't really call it much reading. It's more picture. This is 365 Days with My Faithful Dog. Just a tiny little book that I just absolutely adored. It's full of these cute little photos of dogs close up, and little quotations from various people about dogs, and I just absolutely love it. It's so cute. And I really took my time reading this, just flipping through and enjoying the pages and the little quotes and stuff, and it just really, really hits home. And then the 9th spot would have been middle grade, but I actually didn't read any middle grade books this year. One of my other goals for reading was to slim down some of the books I've been sitting on for a long time. You know, we all do this. We stack up our shelves, and then we have all these books we haven't read. In fact, these you've probably seen in quite a few of my videos. They've been there for a while. I need to get to those. These piles are a little fairly new, and yeah, I haven't even done a book haul on this one yet, but that'll be coming up soon. But my goal was to read what I own, basically, as much as possible. Even ebooks. I have a lot of ebooks. I get almost daily. I get emails that have links to like free or cheap ebooks, and there's usually like a cozy mystery on there or a horror one that I kind of want to try out, and so I needed to get those down. So I actually read through 11 of my ebooks and 9 of my physical books that have been sitting on my shelves for a while. So I was really happy with that, and I want to do more of that this year. Other than that, it was, like I said, a really good reading experience. I just kind of want to touch on some of my favorites for the year. I haven't really done one of those in a while either. I'm just going to start out on a lighthearted note, which was one of those free ebooks I actually got. I liked it so much I bought the second book. And this is A Villa in Sicily, Olive Oil and Murder by Fiona Grace. This is book 1 in the Cats and Dogs mystery series. And then book 2, which I went and bought afterwards, is Figs and a Cadaver. And just really beautiful covers representing Sicily and everything. I really enjoyed this. This is about a, let me put my notes here, basically. A burnt out vet. She is frustrated with her job. She loves the animals. It's the owner she could kind of do without. They all seem to think they know more than she does. She's just about had it. She wants a new start. And then she happens to read about these $1 homes in Sicily. And it's a thing. Go ahead and, Google it or look it up on YouTube. You'll see there are these $1 homes you can buy in Sicily, but you have to guarantee that you will renovate it within like the year. And she goes and checks it out and decides she's going to give it a try, even though she has absolutely nothing about renovation. And she finds out in the village that there's actually not even a vet there. So there's a possibility of, starting her profession in this small little village. So she sets out trying to, start a new life, and ends up hiring some renovation company. Then they're barely there at her house, and they're at this house across the way where this rich woman kind of, is basically buying up these houses to renovate them and sell them and stuff. And she doesn't have a really good relationship with this woman. They get off to a bad start. But anyway, the renovator ends up dead, and she ends up being like one of the prime suspects. In fact, the woman that she can't stand ends up pointing the finger at her, and so she's got to now try and clear her name, try and get, her house still renovated. She befriends a fellow renovator down the road who happens to know how to do some of this stuff, and he kind of comes to her rescue a bit, and there's potential for, romantic future and stuff. But it's everything you want in a cozy mystery, a really wonderful setting, food and the scenery and the cool mystery. Her home is really interesting. And, animals. We've got a vet here. I loved it. I loved it so much. Like I said, I dove right into book 2. I highly recommend it if you're looking for a really good cozy mystery series. So definitely check that out. One of the other ebooks I had for a while, not too long, because I read through this author's quite a bit. I've got some of her books in physical format. I've got to still haul. And this one I ended up having as an ebook. And this is Darcy Coates' The Carroll Haunt. This is a horror novel. Basically what she writes is horror novels. This is probably one of the best horror novels I've read in quite some time. What we have is Remy. She's a tour guide at Carroll House. And she takes people on the tour and talks about all the paranormal things that have occurred in the house. Yet she herself has never experienced anything whatsoever. She never stays after dark. And then one day she receives a request to host 7 guests for a week-long stay to kind of investigate these paranormal things going on in the home. She talks to the owner of the house, who's also interested and intrigued and decides to be part of the investigation. And so Remy says, she's curious. She has, like I said, she hasn't seen anything herself, and she thinks, why not? Let's go ahead and do that. They bring in a medium. That's one of the guests, and things go, south pretty fast. There's a bad storm that traps them all in the house. A lot of weird things start happening. The medium is like roaming the house, kind of sleepwalking, like in a trance in the evening. One of the guests ends up turning up dead, and it just had all the feels of perfect creepiness to it. It really creeped me out, basically. Let me say, this is like the one that gave me chills throughout the book. I just absolutely loved it. If you're looking for a good horror author, you can definitely try her books, but I would start with that one. That was really, really good. Let's see, going on from there, I think I'll dive in deep here. It was one of the classics I read. It's my 3rd Dickens. This is David Copperfield. I don't have a physical copy of it. I believe I listened to this one on audio, but It's like some 882 pages. So I read quite a few chunksters this year, either physical copies or audiobooks. And this one was just so rich with wonderful, detailed characters. We are following, it's basically a coming-of-age story of this young man named David Copperfield from his childhood on up to about his middle years. It doesn't go much beyond that. He is raised by his mother and the housemaid Peggotty because his father passed away just before his birth, so he never even got to meet him. And then his mother remarries a tyrant, basically, named Mr. Mersden. I think she feels challenged by trying to financially support the family, and he comes along, and she feels maybe kind of loved and everything, but he totally turns afterwards and has no love at all for David, and sends him off to school, where at least at school he meets, it's not the best school, I should say. His teachers are equally evil, getting reports from Mr. Mersden as to his behavior, so they're already determined to how they're going to treat him and everything, even though everything Mr. Mersden tells him is not really true. So he goes through some really tough times, but finds some really good friends there. He's also at one point sent away to Mr. Micawber. He's an interesting character. He stays at his home for some time, and I absolutely love Mr. Micawber. He's a man of many words because he can't say anything simply. Very convoluted. He's constantly in debt, but he has the kindest heart. He just doesn't know how to be financially responsible, but he still does everything he can to help out David. It's just full of so many wonderful characters, including David's aunt, who we meet and befriends him, and is just such a strong, wonderful character. It's just so richly detailed, I guess, with all these people. I think he just does characterizations so wonderful, and I can't wait to dive into more of his works. I've only read Great Expectations and A Christmas Carol so far, so looking forward to doing more of those. Then, just to go over some physical books, I read another chunkster. This is the Bounty Trilogy. This is by Charles Nordhoff and James Norman Hall. It consists of Mutiny on the Bounty, Men Against the Sea, and Pitcairn's Island, all three tied together. We feature Captain Bligh and Fletcher Christian, two main characters that you've probably seen, Mutiny on the Bounty in some form, maybe you've read it before. It's all kind of based on fact, because this is an actual mutiny that took place. Men Against the Sea is a epic journey, 3,600 miles in an open boat that Captain Bligh and those loyal to him, when they were set adrift after the mutiny, in open waters. It's just amazing, this journey. It's documented and everything. The first two books are probably my favorite in the trilogy. When you get to Pitcairn's Island, it's Fletcher Christian and the mutineers and some of the Tahitians that have come with him and the women that have come with him, and them trying to find a place to set up their own colony, away where they won't be discovered and brought back for trial or anything like that. But things don't go so well there either, as jealousies and stuff between the Tahitians and the Englishmen and stuff kind of bring down the downfall, you might say, of the island. But that one's kind of told from the perspective of like one of the last remaining mutineers that was found when the island was sort of discovered. And but yeah, overall, I just love a really good sea story. Between Moby Dick and this, and there was another book called Mary Peters that I read, and The Sea Wolf. Some reason, I don't know why, I'm just drawn to these sea stories, and you couldn't do much better than Mutiny on the Bounty and the whole Bounty trilogy, really. The first two books were definitely my favorite, but lots of adventure, lots of really interesting, rich, detailed. You feel like you're on the sea. You'll get a little seasick reading this one. But anyway, really enjoy this one. Another big chunkster that I read. This is To Serve Them All My Days. And this is by R.F. Delderfield. If you're wondering why there's no name, title, this is actually a cover I kind of just created. I got this book at a library sale. It was without a dust jacket. And I just kind of reinforced it with some tape and took a photo off of Goodreads and found an old cover of the photo and popped that on there. So this is basically about David Paulett Jones. He's the son of a poor Welsh miner He'd gone off to war. At the beginning, you see him returning. He's been invalided out of service because he's shell-shocked. He's a bit of a mess. He's still a fairly young man. His doctor suggests maybe a change of atmosphere, get up in the English countryside, maybe try his hand at something. He's very interested in history, and he suggests, trying to apply as a teaching position because a lot of the teachers are off fighting the war as well. And he ends up applying at a boarding school, and the headmaster there sees something he likes in Davy and decides to give him a chance. And this is the headmaster who will be almost like a mentor, a father figure to him, a champion to him. They see a lot of things very much eye to eye, and he finds a family there amongst the boys and the fellow teachers, although he does butt heads with one of the other teachers because they do see things opposite. And you just see this development of this young man finding his feet under him and finding, like I said, a family within the school, bringing a family of his own eventually, and just the ups and downs as he's trying to navigate through this world of this ending World War I. And the kind of, in the future, towards the end of the book, the looming of World War II, and trying to prepare the boys under him for what's to come and what he faced. And it's just so beautifully told. All the various boys that cross his path and their stories, and seeing their future or their tragedies, and just experiencing that with them. I also, as I was reading this, I think it was Masterpiece Theater, I forgot now. I did a video on it a while back, but if you YouTube it, you'll find, I think it's like a 6-part mini-series on this that was just fabulous. So I started watching that when I was about midway through, and it just brought more enjoyment to the book as well. But this is one that really kind of stuck with me after I read it, and they're definitely a wonderful classic to read. I think the last one I have to talk about, last one I just want to mention is one of the literary fictions I read. This is The Girl with the Louding Voice by Abby Dare, and I should say read. I actually listened to this one on audio, which I highly recommend because it's read in the vernacular of a young girl from a poor village, slightly uneducated, Nigeria. So that vernacular really just was so richly brought that character to life, and kudos to the narrator, which I'm sorry I don't have that information with me. I should have had a little more prepared for that. But this is the story of Aduni. She's a 14-year-old girl at the beginning of the story. She's growing up in a small rural village in Nigeria. Her mother has just passed away. She was her champion. She always said, Aduni, you need to get an education. It'll give you a voice. But Aduni wants a louding voice. She wants to actually not only get an education, but then one day become a teacher to pass on education to others. She knows what her mother's always said, that will give you so many opportunities in life. And that's her goal, to continue with school and learn and, eventually, find someone she loves, married, start her own family. But all her dreams are kind of snatched away from her after her mother passes away. Her father can't afford to feed the family, her and her brothers. And so he gives her away in marriage. And it just kind of just devastating for her. I mean, you can imagine a 14-year-old girl, she's being married off to someone she doesn't love, a man much older than her, almost as old as her father. He already has 2 wives. And it is just such a devastating situation she's like abused by the first wife. She luckily finds a bit of a friendship with the second wife. But it's, she's only 14, and she keeps trying to stay positive. This is one of the themes that's throughout the book. I mean, education is obviously the major theme. Education is going to give her so many opportunities, and throughout it, you see her always trying to find ways to learn new things, the ways to improve her voice, to finding a dictionary and learning new words daily, or finding one on the history of Nigeria and learning facts. And those facts are included at the beginning of the chapters, new fact about Nigeria or whatever. But one of the major themes within the book is also friendship. She finds many friends throughout that I think without those friends that she makes, no matter her courage, no matter her determination, she might not have survived the various things she goes through. An incident occurs while she's still married to this man with the other two wives, that she ends up having to run away, and she ends up running to Lagos, a city. So she's gone from this small rural village, suddenly finding herself in this huge city, you know, not knowing what to do. And she meets someone who says, I can get you a job with this big madam that she's known for, and you can be a housemaid to this woman. And it's the only opportunity she has, but it's equally awful. The woman is horrible to her. She is also abusive to her, and denies her lots of various things, including any kind of an education, but she finds her ways around this, like I said. I just love the fact that she, no matter what, stays hopeful. She still remains a kind young woman and always looks to help others, even though her situation is so bad. And this is this book, this young woman's voice, it stays with you so long after you've read the book that I can't wait to see what else this woman writes, because this is her debut novel. And like I said, I'm still thinking about this, you know, months and months after I read it. Very highly recommend Abidare's The Girl with the Louding Voice. So anyway, those are like the top books I read this year. I read quite a few manga, lots of good series and things like that, but lots of wonderful other horror books and cozy mysteries and things along the way. But these are the ones that kind of really stuck with me, and I hope maybe to revisit someday. We'll see. But if you have read any of these that I've mentioned, or if you had any really great books that you read this year, let me know down below. And yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful reading year in 2023, and I will see you in my next video. Bye-bye.